Last Thursday, the 8th of September 2022, Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II passed away at the age of 96. And I believe I'm speaking on behalf of many people from Great Britain and Northern Ireland by saying that at the moment, our nation feels very strange. And whether you're a monarchist or not, or even if you're British or not, a woman who happened to be the most famous person in the world, but who was also a mother, a grandmother, a great-grandmother, has died. And I would have thought anyone with a shred of human decency would treat the event with the respect it deserves. Sadly, I was wrong. As soon as the announcement was made that the Queen was gravely ill, some vile fucknuggets decided to vomit their opinions onto Twitter and other forms of social media. Now, bear in mind that the Queen was working up till 2 days before she died. And yes, I know the royals, there's a lot of wealth and privilege which they haven't necessarily earned. But honestly, would you want that life? Every word you say will be scrutinised. And if I were royal, I'd have a group of bodyguards around me and I'd know that a couple of miles away there's some arsehole with a zoom lens waiting to take my photo. So let's meet some of the absolute bastards who decided they needed to celebrate the Queen's death. This is Uju Anya, a professor at the University of Pittsburgh who teaches critical race theory. And if you're unfamiliar with CRT, well, the vast majority of academics agree it is in itself a form of racism, but it can be summed up in 3 words: white people bad. Critical race theory says that all Caucasians, so if you're the same colour as me, are all inherently racist. So if you're white, you're a Nazi, and more importantly, there's nothing you can do about it. Moreover, everyone else is oppressed. Now, is it just me? But making sweeping statements about a group of people based on their skin colour does sound rather like racism. And as for everyone else being oppressed, should I be phoning the Chinese or the Saudis, apologising, saying, I'm a middle-aged man from Staffordshire in England, I didn't mean to oppress you? And as for, I don't know if she's Miss or Mrs. Anya, from her attitude I'm assuming she's a miss. Her parents actually met in England. So if they hadn't been in this country, she would never have existed. And as we're about to see, that wouldn't have been a bad thing. So this is the tweet she posted a few hours before it was announced that the Queen had passed away. I heard the chief monarch of a thieving, raping, genocidal empire is finally dying. May her pain be excruciating. Wishing a painful death on a woman she's never met, based on nothing other than her own misguided ideas, because she hasn't fact-checked anything. Is it possible to go any lower? Well, to get a feel for what the woman's really like, there's a petition at the university she teaches at, signed by the African-American students wanting her to be removed from position, because she keeps addressing them casually using the N-word. Journalist Tia Harker Love finished his newsletter saying, Lizzie's out, let's get loud, adding, we all have our methods of mourning, friends. Doing the electric slide on a coloniser's grave just happens to be mine. Tia Harker? First of all, that name's just a fucking bad hand at Scrabble. We're all so impressed. I'm also fairly certain that's the last news piece you'll ever write. Jamila Hill from The Atlantic, who you will note has blonde hair, and given that my ancestors are from Scandinavia, bollocks, I'm calling cultural appropriation, she wrote that journalists have a duty to report the devastating impacts of Elizabeth's reign. What are they then? There are dozens more like this, mostly from African Americans who've decided that events that took place before they or even the Queen were born are somehow her fault. And it strikes me, they don't even realise that this is fanning the flames of racism. This is fueling the far right. So if you're one of these people, I have 2 things to say to you. Firstly, it is 2022. Lose the plantation attitude. I don't own any slaves. You've never picked any cotton. And secondly, if you want to pursue an argument, get your fucking facts right. By the time Queen Elizabeth came to the throne in 1952, the British Empire was all but over. It was crumbling. And yes, the empire did some bloody terrible things, but it also did a lot of good. Does anyone believe that India would be the global powerhouse it is now if the British hadn't turned up and modernised the country. The USA used to be part of the British Empire, the most powerful country in the sodding world. The word coloniser has been used a couple of times, and we all know the implications that go along with it. So here is the Queen in 1961 dancing with the President of Ghana just 4 years after the country gained independence. Now at the time this was unheard of, a white woman openly dancing with a black man. But not any white woman, the Queen of England. So to the people implying that she was a white supremacist, how fucking ignorant are you? There are a couple of other minor issues, because when we talk about colonisers, you know the next topic will be slavery. So the Queen came to power in 1952. The United Kingdom banned slavery in 1807, decades before the USA. And the British didn't need a fucking civil war to sort it out. Also, the royal family hasn't had any actual power since 1649. Now they're just window dressing, they're ceremonial. They represent the pomp and circumstance and the traditions that we project out to the rest of the world to make tourists want to come here on holiday. And the royals cost a lot of money, but they bring in much more. Because trust me, I know I've got some American friends who watch this channel. When you come to London on holiday, fuck are you getting fleeced? Oh, you're American. First time in London? Let me get you a genuine cup of English tea. That'll be £75. And when people talk about slavery, it's only ever the transatlantic slave trade. They never talk about the Arabic slave trade, where people from Africa were taken to the Middle East. That ended in 1962. The Beatles were in the charts and people were still being transported as slaves. And the last country to ban slavery was Mauritania, which I believe is in Africa. It outlawed slavery in 1981. I was at fucking play school then. Usually I end these videos by saying, as ever, thanks for watching. But today, I'll say Your Majesty, Queen Elizabeth II, rest in peace, ma'am, and God save the King.